So I've been given early access to the brand new Lumos Ultra from Wecreat, the world's first UV and fiber laser all-in-one. And in today's video, I'm going to be telling you about the machine, about its specs, my experience with it, and why I genuinely believe this is a game changer for a lot of people. So let's jump straight in and talk about the Lumos Ultra. So why is this such a big deal? Well, over the last few years, galvo-style lasers have become mainstream, and this is brilliant for consumers because it's brought the price down and made them more affordable. Now, this really started 4 or 5 years ago with fiber lasers, which are typically targeted at doing deep engravings, coin engravings, basically a lot of metal heavy work that needs to take material out to get brilliant results. Now, fiber lasers are genuinely brilliant and you can do some beautiful pieces with them. But their biggest drawback is they cannot laser wood and they cannot laser glass. And that is where the second wave came in, where UV lasers started getting released and again brought the price of those down. Now, the benefits to a UV laser, as I just mentioned, it will do wood and it will do glass, and it will also do inner crystal engraving. This is where you're putting a design literally inside a solid block of K9 crystal. But the problem was, to do both, you needed to have 2 machines. That's double the cost, that is double the work area, and basically that creates a lot of problems because people either need to pick one or the other. Well, that is where the Lumos Ultra is really making headway because it has just combined the 2 most popular galvo lasers into one. So it's pretty much halving the workspace that you need, and you can get such a wide variety of materials engraved on this one single machine. So let's talk about the actual laser itself. Well, inside this beautiful looking unit is a 6-watt UV laser, and this is the core of the machine. I'll come back and talk about what the UV laser is capable of doing shortly, but the other thing you will notice is this additional unit on the side, and this is the MOPA Fiber laser that feeds directly into this unit, allowing you to have both a UV and a fiber laser combined into one system. Now, the MOPA Fiber laser, this comes in 2 different strengths, a 60 watt and a 100 watt. Now, if you're unsure of the differences between the wattage, it's not necessarily a direct linear scale between power and time differences, but it probably is safe to say that the 100 watt is probably at least 40-50% faster than the 60 watt. So in essence, if you can afford the higher power, it is always worth it because it will save you time and therefore money in the long run. But the 60 watt version can still do everything that the 100 watt version can do as well. And I will just mention that if you're not familiar with laser terminology, MOPA may seem like a foreign phrase, but just to clarify what that is, it gives you access to a different setting within the laser. The main benefit to a MOPA fiber laser over a normal fiber laser is this fine quality control that allows you to really get colors out of things like stainless steel and titanium. I will just quickly chuck this comment in before I forget because a lot of people ask. The source for the fiber MOPA laser is JPT. I know that is important to a lot of people, but that is one of the top manufacturers of the laser source. So I thought I'd just strip everything back and show you the core machine on its own. Now, I have both separate UV and fiber lasers, and I can say that the footprint for this machine almost fits in the same space as just one of those lasers. So we're talking about having 2 lasers that do 3 different types of functions in half of the space. And when you combine that with being able to just change the lenses over easy, the single click switch system in their software, well, we are literally talking a one-stop production machine that's going to be able to deliver you so many amazing projects. Now, I'll move on and talk about what the 2 lasers are capable of achieving in a couple of minutes, but let's come back to the enclosure itself. Now, you can see this is a fully enclosed unit. The lid slides up and down to be able to seal everything around it, and you can view through the laser protective screen that is already inbuilt. So that is for safety. Now, one thing I will say is this can run with the lid up, and Wecreat do not provide safety glasses as part of this kit, or they didn't for me. But I always recommend buying separate laser glasses anyway, because they usually have a higher quality, and you'll want to look for the relevant ratings on the lens. Now, in the enclosure as well are a few additional features. It does have inbuilt dust extraction, and this is basically going to allow you to pull all the dirty fumes and smells out of the back of the machine via a hose and port it out something like a window to just make sure your working environment stays nice and safe and almost smell free. Now there is a inbuilt lighting as well to light everything up, making it clear to see what you are doing. It does have an inbuilt camera which allows you to photograph the work area and position your artwork up over the material. Again, a very useful feature. Plus additional things like autofocus, which basically at the click of one button will allow your machine to judge the material depth accurately. Now you can do this manually as well. There is a knob on the side which will automatically raise the machine up or down. This is electronically controlled and a very smooth system. And there are a couple of lights inside which basically you align and overlap them to find the perfect focal point. Now obviously the correct focal point is the difference really between a good engraving and a bad engraving. The more accurate that focal point is, the better results you are typically going to get. So having both the autofocus and the manual focus is really nice to have, because you do sometimes need to override the autofocus. Now, underneath this hood, right in the center, is the lens for the lasers. And this is really where the Lumos Ultra starts to shine in its simplicity. Now, with your kit, you are provided 3 different lenses. One is for a fiber laser, the second is for UV laser, and the third is for inner crystal engraving. Now, switching between these different laser uses is really simple. You literally take the one lens out that is currently in, put the new lens in that you want to use. Let's say we're switching between the fiber to the UV. Take the fiber lens out, put the UV lens in, and it automatically detects that. Then from one click of a button in your software, you switch from fiber to UV. All the settings have been changed automatically. It's automatically updated, and you can then dive into doing UV work straight away. So we are talking probably 10 to 20 seconds at most to go from one type of laser to the other. And it really is that simple, and it genuinely is that quick. Now, this next point is brilliant for me. If you have seen or used both fiber and UV lasers, one of the differences that you will know is when it comes to framing, which is where it outlines your work on the material you're about to engrave. Now, with a fiber laser, this uses a red outline that is pretty clear to see on most materials, making it very easy to align your work on the material. However, with a UV laser, this is a different wavelength and often much harder to see. It normally only shows on lighter materials, or you have to use something like these green panels to be able to basically see where it is going. Now, this is a bit of a pain, and this is much more difficult to frame on a UV laser. However, because this has both, it can actually frame in both. You can switch between framing with the UV laser or the red light fiber laser. So what that basically means is even if you're using the UV laser, you can still use a red outline to see where your artwork is going to be marked. And this makes life so much easier when you're trying to align things up on the bed of the laser. And that's genuinely no exaggeration. When I realized it could do that, that was such a big thing for me, having previously used both fiber and UV lasers. So let's move on and talk about the work area for the lasers. Now, both the fiber MOPA laser and the normal UV laser have a flat engraving area of 210 millimeters by 210 millimeters. So basically, the biggest piece you can flat engrave is 210 by 210. The maximum crystal engraving size is 70 millimeters by 70 millimeters by 135 millimeters on the height, which for crystal engraving is pretty big. It means you can do these larger blocks that you can see here. Now, in terms of the actual flat engraving, there are a couple of accessories that will extend this. Now, you have the sliding bed for this, which I did the baseball bat on. This way you can fix a piece of material down to it, and it will basically move it along and process it and engrave it. And I can't remember the exact measurement. I think it's 700 millimeters long, but if I get that wrong, I'll put an update on the screen to correct the information. Now, there is also the conveyor belt for this machine. So, and this allows your work area up to 1,000 millimeters. So you can do a pretty long piece with that. So for doing things like production runs, it is brilliant because it can really speed the process up. But as I say, those are 2 additional accessories that can be purchased separately or as part of bundles. Now, there is an additional accessory as well, which is the rotary device, which I have been using and testing also. Now, when it comes to rotary devices, one of the issues is usually that you either have to have a big rotary device that can't do smaller items very well, or you have a smaller rotary that can't do bigger items very well. Now, I am genuinely impressed with the rotary device that has come with this machine. It is very solid and sturdy, and they've also built the jaw to allow it to take smaller things, so you can engrave things such as rings, but also take larger items such as your thermos cups or Stanley mugs. So it really is a versatile rotary device. And again, this works with both the UV and fiber aspect of things. So not only can you do things like glass tumblers, glass cups, you can also move on and then do things such as your metal engravings, as I say, on rings, on jewelry, on things such as the thermos mug. So it is a very versatile accessory to be able to have with this machine. And what is pretty cool that I've personally never seen before is that sliding bed that I mentioned and the rotary can actually be combined together. So you can do longer pieces on the rotary. Now, I haven't actually had time to test this myself, but in theory, what you could do is I could have attached that bat to the rotary as part of the sliding bed and actually engraved all the way around the baseball bat itself. So there's a really nice feature that I'm looking forward to playing with and testing in the future. So let's talk about what the Lumos Ultra can actually engrave. Now, I genuinely don't know where to start with this segment of the video because typically there would be a list for fiber lasers and there would be a list for UV lasers. But because you have both, what this laser can actually engrave is honestly immense. I think Wecreat lists something like 2,500 different materials that this can engrave on. And pretty much anything that you can think of, this is going to engrave. Now, as I touched on earlier, traditionally the two approaches are anything that is metal or needs to be deep engraved, you're going to be looking at the fiber laser because of the wavelength of that. And then things like your crystals, your glass, you're going to be looking at the UV laser for those. And also, I should say, the more delicate items that need to be lasered typically will be done with a UV laser as well. Now, in saying that, the UV laser can still engrave on metal as well. But as I say, because it is a more delicate, cold approach to engraving, it can often give you better, finer results, whereas the fiber laser will get the deeper, embossed results that people typically like to see on things like Challenger coins. But if I had to try and summarize it into a list, let's try this. Well, we are talking all your different types of metals. We are talking your silicons, your acrylics. You're going to be engraving things like feathers, leaves. You're going to be doing different types of jewelry. I think you can engrave stuff that come off 3D printers, for example. You can engrave things such as your plastic coated types of metals like these tumblers, and basically you can either take the coating off or you can even engrave through into the metal itself. I'm looking around for inspiration. You can engrave things like leather, you can engrave materials, you can engrave paper, cardboard. It's an endless list, as I say. The versatility of this is ridiculous. So let's talk about the price. Now, there is an initial super early bird offer of $3,699. Now, there is only 100 units available at this price. So if you're looking at this machine and genuinely interested, then I would suggest signing up very early. There are links down in the description area below. Now, moving on to the normal campaign price. Frustratingly, I do not know this, and I hate doing a video without knowing the price of the machine. I have asked them multiple times, but they basically said it's not going to be released until the day the campaign goes live. Should I find out early, I will just put them up on screen now to make it easy, but as soon as I do find out, they will obviously be in the description area as well. Now, when we are talking about releasing this, it is going live by a Kickstarter with an early sign-up campaign. There's a lot to get in this section. That basically means you pledge $50 early, and as a result of doing that, that will give you $300 off the actual price for the machine. So again, if you are wanting this laser, the earlier you sign up, the more you are going to save. Now, I did just touch on this is being launched on Kickstarter. Wecreat are a established brand. They put many lasers out there. So they're basically just using Kickstarter as a way to launch this and drum up interest. However, Kickstarter does have some risks, so definitely do your own research before committing. But as I say, they are an established company. This is not the first laser, so you're probably in very safe hands. So let's move on and talk about software. Now, based on my previous experiences, when companies start getting innovative and doing brilliant things like this, it is always the software that lets it down. It never performs to a high enough standard to match what the laser is capable of. I am very thankful and genuinely can say this does what it is needed to do. Not only is the software easy to use, you can switch between the different laser types extremely easy. Controlling all the settings, very simple. Loading in files, creating your own files, using the AI feature to generate models for things like the crystal engraving. It is all really simple. Switching between flat engraving to doing things like 2D, 3D engravings, deep coin relief engraving. Again, it is all extremely simple. It is pretty much one click here and there to change between the different approaches, to change the different settings. I actually can't stress enough how happy I am that the software is living up to the standard of the laser itself. They do not get me wrong, there are a couple of minor bugs that need tweaking, correcting, but they have fed back to Wecreat about. And when we're talking about the software bugs, I am talking about minor things. For example, when you're doing certain processes, you can do bidirectional engraving, which is where it engraves in both directions. However, other processes can only engrave in a single direction, which means it engraves, go back to the start, engraves. And basically the single direction means things take a bit longer. So by just tweaking those features and giving the bidirectional for all the different processes, I say it's really going to refine that software and probably make it perfect. Some people may ask, does it work in Lightburn? But I don't know how practical this is going to be. For example, Lightburn doesn't really do 3D engravings at the moment, so it's obviously not going to work with those. Lightburn can't switch automatically between the UV and the MOPA, so again, it's probably going to be a bit more fiddly doing that. This is one scenario where I can confidently say I am actually more comfortable using their own software than Lightburn. That is something I had never said before. Now, I've been extremely positive about this laser so far, probably more positive than I've been about any other laser previously. Now, I always like to find things that could be improved as part of my reviews because I just think it's best for the manufacturer as well to keep developing their products and making things better for the consumer. Now, the only things I can really find on this are pretty minor. For example, the lid itself, that is about as high as it comes up. It would be nice if that was able to lift just a little bit higher. I often find I'm crouching down to try and view what's going on or trying to position the material in place. And because the lid doesn't lift up that high when you are changing the lenses, you're almost doing it a bit blind from underneath and trying to fiddle about. So with that lifting up a bit higher, it would even make the lenses being changed over easier as well. And as silly as it sounds, it also blocks their own logo. I think it's nice to have the logo on show. Another minor point, when you are doing the crystal engravings, you need to lift the base up for the crystal to be on. Now, what they have done is kind of giving you some stilts to raise the bed up. Now, this is a bit fiddly, it's time consuming. It would have just been easier and faster for them to give you a jack lift table like I have used on other lasers. This would have been a nicer approach rather than using those stilts that they currently provide in as part of the accessories. Other than those couple of minor things, this has genuinely been a great experience with this machine. Even little things like the fans, not only for the exhaust, but the actual cooling of the laser themselves, these only really kick in when the laser starts and run for a little bit of time afterwards. So as you can hear, the laser is turned on now and it's perfectly quiet whilst it is not running. Again, nice little features, just really refining this laser. Now, I'll quickly mention you'll see a few 3D printed files throughout the video, such as the lens holder, the spoil board, the coin holder, all the different files I've designed for this machine. I'll put them on sale on my website, so go and check that out if you are interested in them. In terms of getting up and running, the package arrived, it was very well protected, good solid foam inside, securing everything nice and well. The setup was very simple. The main unit is pretty much good to go, short of connecting the power cable. With the MOPA edition on the side, again, there's a power cable, an auxiliary cable, and then you sort of plug the laser source into the back of this. So again, very simple, very quick to set up. And in terms of connecting it, well, you can connect this via USB to your laptop or PC. You can also run it via Wi-Fi as well. It does recommend USB cable. That is the fastest and most consistent method, but you do have multiple connection options should you want to. Now, as you've probably already noticed, I have nothing but praise for this machine. It has genuinely been amazing, not only from the laser aspect, but also from the software side as well. And Wecreat have done a brilliant job of being innovative and bringing this to the market. So if you are interested in this laser, as I say, there will be some links down in the description area below where you can sign up, get the early discount and those type of things. So go and check them out. Any questions, let me know. I will do my best to answer. I'm also going to be continuing testing this, so make sure you're following me on social media to see any further updates about it. Thank you all very much for watching. Final thanks as always goes to my patrons, and I will see you all on the next episode.